And for more on BNN Bloomberg's Top Line, let's now bring in Brett Wilson, chairman of Canoe Financial. Brett, here we are again, another Monday, and talking about cannabis. Perhaps who knew that we were going to be talking about a major merger, but it seems though there's something going on every day in the space. What's your quick reaction here?
Well, consolidation is a given, and as Terry Booth, who I greatly admire at Aurora, was talking, the upward trend in the market is obvious. As we get closer to the July, August, September full legalization, the space has got, and we had been hearing rumors of the MedReleaf deal for a while. Obviously, they've been working on it, and the market has been pretty positive in terms of its response to the deal.
Mm-hmm. What are they getting in this deal, do you think?
Well, MedReleaf represents one of the better brands, one of the better names, and certainly one of the better recognized LPs. So it's consolidation at its finest. I mean, operating costs are going to continue to come down, and they've got to keep their overhead managed. And this is a chance to grow production into an exciting time in recreational cannabis.
But Brett, when you have such a new industry, why do we need to see this type of consolidation so early, so fast?
It's really a matter of the fact that so many LPs have come into the market, and everyone's kind of been stumbling over each other as to who's going to take what position where. We're still refining the distribution model, but the LPs themselves are very quickly adding growing rooms, talking about how they're going to keep their costs down, and of course adding new products to the marketplace. And it's the new products that excite many of the players.
But it sounds as though it's because the industry has become almost too fragmented, too many players, that's why we're seeing a need to scale up.
Nah, it's just egos.
Oh, really?
To some degree, there's people saying they're the biggest. And,
yeah.
But that with biggest, I mean, to legitimize that, with biggest comes market power. And I happen to fundamentally believe that the fundamentals, the forecasts that are being used to judge the size of the market, and it's anecdotal evidence, but I think they're missing it by probably a double. The market is much greater than anyone is forecasting.
Right.
And it's just based on conversation. The percentage of the population that is using, interested in using, willing to use, curious about using is far greater than ever forecast.
But Brett, I mean, how do you explain the discrepancy between what you told us last week, which is you see the industry more like $35–40 billion, right?
Now, sorry, that's 4 or 5 years from now. The current forecast, and remember that includes global, Canada's forecast, they're comparing to the spirits and wine industries, which are each of them are $6–7–8 billion. I just think as we move from the back street to the front street, remember, we're not growing an industry to start with. We're just moving it, legitimizing it again from illegal to legal. So there's an awful lot of transition that'll occur very, very quickly as the legalized market says, look, we're the purest form. There's no molds, mite, or mildew in our product. You need to be buying what we do. And of course, it's regulated. It's therefore tax and all royalties and all of those things are going to come very quickly. But the real growth comes in the market as both medical and recreational go in lockstep. And people who've never tried it, my 87-year-old father, no goddamn way am I ever, well, we're going to sneak it into him through his bills to tell him that it's...
No, you're not. No, you are not doing
Well,
that.
he doesn't watch this show, so the intention is that he's going to get it through his omega-3 supplements.
Why?
But he's going to see it because I'm absolutely convinced of the efficacy, of the legitimacy of helping him in terms of pain management.
Okay, so when you take a look, let's take aside the recreational use. Let's talk about how large you actually think the industry will be for medical purposes, for pain management. Think about it. How big?
Again, we're just on the cusp of it. Again, a best friend virtually broke his neck a year ago, and rather than one of the top neurosurgeons in Canada leaving him on opiates, fentanyl-based painkillers, he moved him as quickly as possible to work with different variations and strains of cannabis. And again, so if it's coming from the top, it's coming from the bottom, it's coming from all sides, people will start to accept as a stress, as sleep, as pain management.
Right.
There's so many applications. And again, all of this has been proven or being proven through research.
Right. Well, I suppose then we really just have to know how large the pain medication industry is.
Well, it's massive.
I
And
know.
I think the addiction right now, and again, there's other things that I worry about. Xanax, which parents get and their kids get. I mean, I've spent time coaching in suicide wards, and one of the most humbling moments is when I ask the kids, what's their drug of choice? Cannabis? Never. It's alcohol. It's some form of fentanyl or the opiates, and it's Xanax.
Why are they taking Xanax?
Well, because it's readily available. Prescriptions available through their parents, through their doctors, and it's for anxiety. I would much rather have these kids, quite frankly, on cannabinoids than any of these other
So the market,
terrible diseases.
the market potential is essentially immense. But then let's go back to what it does look like today, or where you think it's going to look 3-5 years out. Is $3.2 billion, that's the deal value we're talking about for MedReleaf, correct?
Yeah, and that's 40% of the combined company. So together they're what the math would be, $7 billion? Massive.
Massive.
Yeah, Canopy growth, Bruce Linton's still growing.
Tell me if I'm wrong, but MedReleaf last quarter made $11 million with a $5 million loss.
That could well be.
And
what we're
here
buying
we are,
is it's all being bought on the come.
You don't think that that's right, but you don't think that that's a bit of a bubble?
Well, for sure it's a bubble.
Okay.
But look at what's coming. You don't need to forecast a particularly massive market to justify some of the numbers that we're seeing. So no, I mean, yes, on today's values, if you shut down the industry today, there'd be a complete collapse in economics. But that's not what's happening. Medical's growing rapidly and recreational is around the corner. There's just no question.
How do you know, though, as a viewer, investor watching us have this conversation, who is really going to be able to continue to build the business and not go bankrupt?
Well, we monitor, my family office and I, which is my son, probably monitor 50 or 60 different companies in Canada, and we're positioned in quite a few of them. And with time, we're getting to know the people, the Bruce Lintons, the Alan Gertners, the John Stewarts, the on and on and on as we name drop. Terry Booth, perfect example, running Aurora. As we get to know these people, we're getting to know the quarterbacks who are going to be the quarterbacks of the next decade, not just the people growing an LP into the fullness of time. We'll see who shakes out.
How do you know when you're meeting these people and you talk about relationships, and I'm a big believer in that, but how do you know that these are the right ones, these are the right guys? Under promise, over deliver as we get to know people. I mean, I played the same game, if you want to call it a game, in the oil and gas industry as we got to know quarterbacks and Paul Colborn and Stuart, I mean, on and on, people that I would finance 10 or 20 times. And you get to know them because you can trust them. And that's where we're working to build trust with some of the people who are running these big cannabis organizations. What other companies do you think should be acquired? I'm not going there. Why not? No, why not? Because I own a bunch of them, and so I'm not going to front run my own portfolio. Well, I don't want to look like I was. You'd be pumping them up. Well, I don't want to pump and dump or any of those stories. No, it's just, I mean, it's speculation, and so I'm not going to do that. But you think that there's demand for more acquisitions? I know of a dozen conversations going on right now of mergers, takeovers, people saying we're next. You just stack up the LPs. Is there any pricing discipline when these groups get together and talk about a price? Well, as Terry Booth said, they expect prices to be higher, so let's act now. So that's called upward trending. You know, gosh, there's some bubble in all of this, but we've got a market that's on the come, and you have to believe. And I'm a bigger believer in the size of the market than anyone's forecasting. You know, the federal government isn't seeing numbers like I am. When do you expect to actually see the revenue and the profit? We're really 2 and 3 years away. Okay. But that's why positioning now, and that's why all these jockeys are positioning for that next, if you will, the next day. Okay, well, I thought you were going to say the next leg. What does the next leg look like? We've got to get recreational distributed. And that's one of the biggest challenges. Every province is coming up with its own brilliant idea on how many. I mean, Alberta has said we're going to have 250 cannabis retailers. Why 250? Why not 220? Why not 300? Who knows? But we've got to let the 250 get in place and then let them work, do their thing. And there's going to be some mistakes. There's issues around bylaws about how close they're going to be. City of Westbank and Kelowna is taking a very narrow and I think very backward view about how they want to put cannabis retailers in place. Other people are being more aggressive.